I'm assuming everyone's all right to be recorded. I've just pressed a button anyway, but I can always stop if anyone's not happy, or if you're not happy to be recorded, just switch yourself off. I won't take offence. I won't mind. I won't mind if you don't show your face. So, welcome everybody. It is Friday. Tessa is going to talk us through or take us on her interpretation of this month's theme of matriarchy. Tessa, I'll let you introduce yourself, talk about what you do, talk about your company, and take it away.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for having me here. Let me just share my screen quickly. I was saying earlier to Hannah that Tim actually asked me to do this talk back in January. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And then it came around and I was like, what do I say about matriarchy? I spend so much of my time slagging off the patriarchy that I don't really know what to say about matriarchy. Can everyone see my slides all right? Am I showing you my speaker view rather than the actual view? Hang on. So it took me a little bit of a while, but actually I realised that at Collaborative Future we have been on a journey towards creating a matriarchy, somewhat accidentally in some ways. I'm the founder of Collaborative Future, and we support businesses to build diverse teams that thrive. We have a particular focus on running work placement programs for unemployed or underemployed young people. And it just so happens that this latest round of our work placement program has been entirely young women, partly because our model really attracts them and our approaches really attract them, and partly because the pandemic has actually affected young women the most out of every single demographic within the UK. So if you are interested in our work, I will share details at the end in terms of what we do around our work placements, because we actually have one coming up in Nottingham specifically for young people that want to be creative freelancers. And so we support them for 6 months with paid work across a community of established freelancers and businesses. This illustration, I find it really strange that all of my work sort of comes together in these sorts of talks. But this illustration was actually created by Zoya, who was an amazing artist on our last round of the program. And I asked her at the end of the program to create a postcard that symbolized Collaborative Future for her. And this is what she created. So when I came to thinking about matriarchy, I thought, okay, I'll think about what we've created at Collaborative Future and how that came to be. And I decided that actually my approach to feminism has changed quite dramatically. And I want to share that journey with you all, because I imagine you will all be on that journey somewhere along the lines. I'm sure that there'll be something in here that resonates with you. So we're going to go a bit deep first. We are going to talk about the patriarchy. So these are 2 pictures of me when I was a teenager. So something that happened very recently to me is that I came out as gay. The picture of me on the left was when I was about 15. And I had been repeatedly told by our society, by our patriarchal society, that queer people should not exist. They had been,
Just a quickie, I can see a window blocking our screen. Oh. I think you need to press something on your computer saying enter full screen mode, because we can't see your lovely pictures.
Hang on.
I didn't stop mid-flow. I just thought it might be me, so I'd wait till you went to the next slide.
Oh yeah, sorry.
No, it's all right. We just can't see your lovely. Yay, that's it. Sorry. Okay. We can now see a beautiful face.
Cool. So let me just move this down. So yeah, I was told that queer people should not exist. For me, queer people had been completely written out of my history. And I was told in many different forms that it was disgusting to be gay growing up. The picture on the right-hand side was actually when, like, not long after I'd experienced a very visceral embodiment of the patriarchy. So when I was 17, I was drugged and raped by a man that was twice my age. And this is also something that I've only come to terms with in the last year. I thought that that was just the way that life was supposed to be. I grew up to sort of expect some of this in some ways. And so for me, these are just some examples for how the patriarchy has played out within my life as a woman. And now for me, patriarchy versus matriarchy is not about men versus women. It is about these particular values that the patriarchy is built upon: exclusion, extraction, violence, domination, and all of that creates a sense of powerlessness within many of us, not just within women. So one of the ways that I dealt with that on my journey was to become the patriarchy in some ways. So after my teenage years, I decided that actually I would just become one of the lads. I would pursue my career. I would become like a big, successful boss within a tech company. And I realized actually, not only was this unsustainable because I was blocking out parts of myself, that actually this wasn't helping anyone. Me being able to sort of invisibly move through this patriarchal world didn't change anything. Not everyone has the capacity and the privilege to be able to move invisibly through our patriarchal society. So one of the big changing points for me actually was when I got pregnant with my first child. And then it really was impossible for me to stay invisible. And it really was impossible for me to infiltrate the sort of tech culture that I'd been part of, because I was the first woman that had gone on maternity leave at that organization. And I went back after 3 months because that was all I could afford to take off, because they didn't give proper parental leave support. So I went on my journey towards being a bit
Tessa, so sorry to interrupt you because I'm really loving everything you're saying, but we still can't see your slides properly. So I think we're missing out on whatever's on the screen. We can now only see like the top of the screen.
Ooh.
I'm so sorry to interrupt.
All right.
That's it.
That's fab. Sorry, I was going to say, but you're in the flow and I didn't want to interrupt. We hate the technology. We hate the technology. We love it, but we hate it. I can definitely see. Can everyone give a little thumbs up if you can? I can see now. Yay, we are good.
Just because you missed this, some people will say some feminists will talk about Sheryl Sandberg and the Lean In book. If you're at that part in your journey with feminism and the patriarchy, I would love to talk, because I was at that point in my journey and it was not the way to go, I felt personally. So I moved to smashing the patriarchy after I gave birth. I actually gave birth just as Donald Trump was coming into power. And I actually, during Labour, was screaming about Donald Trump and telling my daughter that if we survived my Labour together, that we would bring down the patriarchy. So it was a big promise to make to her. So one of the first things that I did when after she was born, about a month after she was born, I took her up to London to the Women's March, and I got all very vocal about feminism, very vocal about the patriarchy, and I also got really quite angry towards men. I got very particularly angry towards my dad and people like that. And then I realised that actually, not only is it very hard to maintain that anger, because the anger really only hurts you more than it does the system. I also realised that I was part of creating these systems of oppression. Not only was I conditioned to hold myself back, but I was also conditioned to hold other people back. And I did that through multiple ways. One of them through sitting in my comfort within sort of a capitalist, white supremacist, heteronormative system. At this point, I was still very much outwardly in a heterosexual relationship. And I was still very much part of the big like tech startup scene. And I realized that actually I was still propping up patriarchy in many ways, in many of my actions. So some of you will be familiar with this hashtag that's gone around. You know, some of you perhaps listening to me talking about some of my examples of how the patriarchy manifests, is that people often respond, well, that's not all men. You know, not all men want to dominate women and things, but actually all of this is deeply embedded in every single one of us. And I realized, how do you continue to smash and break the patriarchy when you are the patriarchy, when you are part of the problem? And so I ended up doing a lot of deep emotional work that's still ongoing now. Some of it to reconcile with the pain and the wounds that I'd had inflicted on me. Some of the wounds that I'd inflicted on myself, but also the wounds that I'd helped to inflict on others too. And I started at that point my journey towards what I would now see as having built a mini-matriarchy. So I started by actually finding myself. I think when we're talking about systems and societies, there's so much that is so deeply, either deeply repressed or things that are not us, that are deeply embedded within us. And we think that that is how we're supposed to behave and that's how we're supposed to be. And I went along to this retreat, which was about community dialogue in Europe. And it was predominantly women from all over Europe. And it was the first ever experience I'd had in being in a space that was predominantly women. And it was the first ever experience I'd had where all of these people that do lots of different work were telling our stories openly. We were sharing our ideas and our work and our approaches, and we were connecting really, really deeply. And that enabled me to actually find who I actually was, rather than putting on all of these masks in order to exist within the patriarchy. I then went freelance, and I was lucky to be able to find other women in that same sort of space and support systems. And again, it was the first time in my life that I had worked with predominantly women. I'd spent all of my career to date working in male-dominated industries. And it was I was absolutely bowled over by these women in particular, right? I moved to Nottingham, I had this random idea, and they were like, yeah, we're going to support you. We're going to give you loads of PR. We're going to sponsor you to do this and stuff. And they gave that without any expectations or any need for control or power. And this was me just as we'd hit our crowdfunding target for Collaborative Future, a week after my son was born. And now there's not many people who can, women in particular, who can go into a workplace and be held and championed in this way that soon after giving birth. So I found others, I found women in particular that supported me on my journey. And that led to me growing something entirely new. And the most beautiful thing about growing Collaborative Future, this is a picture of some of my team and also some of the young women that have been on our programs, is that actually when you're creating something new, you're not tearing down the old system. You're just creating what you need for yourself and for others that surround you. And what I found is that through doing this act of like creation together, that we've found a lot of joy together, and that we've created new experiences that say to young women, yes, you exist. Yes, you are valuable. Yes, you are powerful. And yes, you can be free. And for me, the difference between a matriarchy and a patriarchy is not about women having power over men. It is actually about finding our power within and living from completely different values. And now men are absolutely welcome in this beautiful, beautiful world if they are ready to live by those values too. We have some amazing men that support our work, that are part of our programs and things, and they absolutely love being part of that world. And now for me, these are just some of the words that I think of when I think of a matriarchy. Some of them are actually a little bit similar to our collaborative future values, which I hadn't clocked until I did this talk. But unlike the patriarchy, a matriarchy is not about taking stuff away from people. It's not about taking power away from people. It is about centering around the very act of giving life. We give life not just to children through the actual process of reproduction, but we give life to ourselves when we exist in this matriarchy. We give life to one another and to our work. And for me, that is incredibly energizing rather than extractive. So I wanted to end by saying that feminism is for everybody. And I was a bit fearful of talking about the matriarchy because I often get, particularly my sister-in-law actually, whenever I talk about feminism, she thinks that I'm prioritizing my daughter over my son. And that could be like no further from the truth. Like my son will thrive more in a system built on these things than on these things. You know, even if he somehow was like the most powerful man in the world, those most powerful men, the likes of Donald Trump, they are not thriving in this sort of system. The reason why this system keeps perpetuating itself is because they are so goddamn angry because no one is enjoying that system. So for me, matriarchy is about creating a world where everybody thrives and where we're giving life to one another. That's me. Let me escape.
That was amazing, Tessa. Big clap for Tessa. Thank you ever so much.